Evening. It's taken more than 130 years, but the Moreton Bay region finally has its own rail line. The first train left Redcliffe this morning to celebrate a community open day, with thousands lining up to test it out, among them Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull. Tegan George was there.
Frances Pearce has waited her entire life to ride the new Redcliffe rail line. Tomorrow she turns 100.
I never thought you'd ever get it, actually, but it's something to remember.
Among the first 400 to ride the train, the Prime Minister.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Hello.
Fittingly, it was 20 minutes late. Not that anyone was complaining.
We've been waiting for it for many years.
1885, I think it was first mooted. So, you know, here we are dressed in the period clothing of the time.
It was meant to open mid-year, but problems with the signalling system pushed it back. Today, 230 ballot winners were lucky enough to test it out first.
My grandfather went to a meeting in 1888.
Absolutely over the moon.
This is one of the greatest things that could ever happen to the peninsula.
It took 3 levels of government and both the major parties to make it happen.
I want to say to all of you, this is for you.
Some still think it's a miracle they pulled it off.
Since 2010, when the Heads of Agreement was signed, we've had 4 Prime Ministers, 3 Premiers and 1 Mayor.
If it was built in the early 90s, it would have cost $42 million. The final price tag, $1.2 billion.
It's a shame our children didn't get to be able to use it. They all moved out of Redcliffe because there was no transport.
For everybody else who may be heading back to work tomorrow, the first train will leave this station at 3:46 a.m. But trains will be running every 15 minutes during peak hour.
So we hope it takes a few cars off the road.
Now the focus turns to Cross River Rail, which still needs federal funding.
Writing out cheques, which is all your taxes, without doing the homework is a good way to waste money.
We have done our homework. We've got the business case with the Prime Minister.
Here's hoping it's done by the turn of the century. Tegan George, 10 Eyewitness News.
Reference to the Redcliffe Railway dates back to the late 1800s and was proposed by a local alderman. In the 1980s, the state began purchasing the required land to establish a transport corridor between Petrie and Kippering. Heavy rail was the preferred option because it was the best fit with the existing rail network, could carry the highest number of passengers and offered the fastest journey times as well as best value for money. By September 2012, pre-construction works between Petrie and Kippering started, and in 2014, civil works commenced. The new rail line was electrified in January 2016, and in March, this train began to run. Today we celebrate the official opening, approximately 126 years after the rail to Redcliffe was first proposed.
A century in the making. The Moreton Bay rail link finally open. Karina Carvalho with ABC News. They've been waiting for more than a century. Now the residents of Queensland's Redcliffe Peninsula have a rail link connecting them to the capital. The Prime Minister, Premier and politicians of all persuasions joined celebrations to mark the rail line's extension. Here's state political reporter George Roberts.
In the history of train delays, this one has to be a record.
50 years ago I wondered about it, but it's here today. That's the important thing.
It's been a long time coming, but I think it's going to be a great thing for the area.
The connection to the capital is expected to take 600 commuter cars off the road each day. Even the youngsters are excited.
Cheat, cheat.
What goes choo-choo?
Train.
Do you like trains?
On board, there's Francis Pearce, who's just 99 years young.
I like going on train trips.
Alan Meeks representing his family to make sure it has finally been done.
My grandfather went to a meeting in 1888 suggesting that they should be extending the railway line to Redcliffe. So it's only taken them 130 odd years to do it.
The Prime Minister and the Premier are both sharing credit for the occasion.
Isn't it great that there is such bipartisan support for this infrastructure?
What a terrific day. Are you all happy to be here? Yes!
But despite the air of cooperation, there's still key projects the parties can't get agreement on, like whether the Prime Minister will fund Brisbane's Cross River Rail.
Writing out cheques, which is all your taxes, without doing the homework is a good way to waste money. So we're going to be very careful about it.
He doesn't have to provide new money for Cross River Rail. He can just put back in the money that was cut in the 2014 budget.
Then there's the M1 upgrade that the state wants 80% federal funding for.
The M1 financing under both Labor and LNP, federal governments and state governments for that matter, has been 50-50, so that's the basis on which it's proceeding.
Not so, says the Premier.
I hope that we can work together in the future for projects such as Cross River Rail and also the M1.
Some way down the track perhaps. George Roberts, ABC News, Kippering Station.
Our platform here at Triangle is on the left-hand side. Our platform is on the left-hand side.
See now?
That brings our journey to Pickering to an end. The platform this morning, this afternoon, is on the right-hand side. On the best this morning, our platform's on the right-hand side. This service does return to Pickering.
After years of delays and months of scrutiny, the much-anticipated Moreton Bay Rail Link has been officially opened in Queensland. Tessa Hardy was among the huge crowd there to watch the first train depart.
The Redcliffe Peninsula train was first promised more than 100 years ago, but today's the day history was finally made and that first train left Kippering Station. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull and Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk were among those on the very first train this morning, as well as 230 lucky ballot winners who won their place out of 3,000 who applied. Now, the Redcliffe Peninsula train line is $1 billion project paid for by both federal and state government as well as local council, and it consists of 6 new stations. Kippering to Petrie, passing through Rothwell, Mango Hill East, Mango Hill, Marumba Downs and Kalanga. It will take locals from Redcliffe to Central in 55 minutes. Now, today was a community day with the train doing free loops between the 6 new stations so locals could get a feel for it. Many dressed up in period costumes to mark the special occasion, and there was one extra special local resident, Francis Pearce, who was about to celebrate her 100th birthday tomorrow with the train trip to mark the momentous occasion.
I never thought I'd live that long. It's nice to have reached it, and everybody's been so lovely.
We live just around the corner from the new Kalanga station, so we watched the progress over the last 3 or 4 years, and so we're excited to be on the first one.
everyone here is just so really happy because it means a huge thing for our kids in this area, access to jobs and opportunity. So in a lot of ways this is a day for the kids.
The opening of this line was delayed because of signalling faults. It was meant to open mid-year. Now tomorrow is the day that regular ticketed services will begin.
After more than a century of waiting, was the Redcliffe rail link worth the wait? It's been a century in the making, but the railway line to Redcliffe is now officially open. More than 400 people, including the Prime Minister, were on board the first open day service that departed Kippering this morning. Marlena Watt was there.
12.5 kilometres of track has lured the Prime Minister, the Premier and hundreds of excited residents for the first public train to travel along the long-awaited Redcliffe Peninsula Line. The rail line has been promised for more than a century from Kippering to Petrie. The community open day inspired some residents to turn back the clock and families turned out to celebrate. From thousands of entries, 230 lucky ballot winners scored a seat on the first train to leave. The line stops at Rothwell, Mango Hill East, Mango Hill, Marumba Downs, Kalanga to Petrie. It means Moreton Bay residents can travel directly to Brisbane CBD in just under an hour.
An excellent solution instead of driving all the way out of Redcliffe.
This rail line will be part of your lives, part of the fabric of your community.
Everyone has worked together to make this day come to fruition.
I'm expecting it'll be absolutely as full as the State School's hat rack.
Frances Pearce joined commuters for the ride. She'll turn 100 tomorrow. Despite all of the delays, the billion-dollar project has taken funding from federal and state governments and the Moreton Bay Regional Council. The line will carry 650 new services, with trains leaving every 6 to 12 minutes during peak times.
The new rail line was built